What's going on, nation? Little post-game chat here, fired up. And I want to let the people file the door here. I know YouTube is a percolating endeavor for me, and I appreciate you guys coming over to YouTube for these conversations. Obviously, Twitter doesn't allow a live chat, so I'm trying to build YouTube. Shout out to Jay Money for building a huge YouTube. Shout out to the Shark, myself, for building that with him, as much as there's a lot of disrespect there. And I will say this, continuing the conversation of years, love Jay Money, great human being, great shows. It was never about me. It was never about you. It was never about anything other than the fact that we worked so well together. And shout out to you for doing incredible work and having an amazing YouTube channel. But now here I am, solo, as I've always somehow default gone back to where I exist very well. It is the Shark in his element. Sunday afternoon here, July the 27th. Going to unpack a little bit of the NBA, or I should say Olympic game. It felt like the NBA. I mean, we're basically watching the NBA showcase across this Olympics, and it's a showcase to the Dream Team 92, obviously opening up the window for the international market to be gigantic in terms of the Olympics and obviously professional basketball in the NBA and across the world. Just cracked a seltzer, had 2 Bud Lights, I think maybe 3 during the game, feeling great vibes. As I said, I shout Jay Money because I love him. I really do. And the controversy was complete nonsense. If we ever were in real life, it wouldn't exist. Just great people doing great things. So sending great vibes to everybody who's watching, existing, desiring love, finding love, and being their best self. Hopefully on a suddenly not so casual Sunday afternoon in July. Cheers to you guys having a seltzer now. And, the first thing when I was watching the game, and if you guys scroll back on my Twitter feed for pretty much the duration of the game, I made a couple comments before the game, in the first quarter, and then throughout the game. Personnel-driven, NBA-driven in terms of legacy, and also maybe some hot takes, my emotions. And, one of the things that I love about watching the NBA, or excuse me, I keep saying this, the Olympic team in the NBA, or the NBA team in the Olympics, whatever you want to call it, one of the things I love about that is I can be a fan. And when you bet sports, the fandom goes away. There's no way around it. You need results. It's financially driven. There's a lot of pressure, and it's very stressful, if I'm being honest, particularly for myself as a high competitor. Spanky Weber in the house, what's going on? People in the chat, fire up the chat, questions, answers. I'm hanging out, super live here. Drop anything you want. I'll talk about it. Open season for conversation here. But staying on that point, one of the things that I really, truly enjoy about watching the Olympic team, I'm a fan. And you guys don't really know me as a fan. You know me as a sports bettor, and you know me as a competitor in the industry. And one of the things that's so beautiful about being a fan is that you don't have to function on logic and numbers and prognostication, and you can kind of just ride the wave emotionally with your group. And even when you get down, you're not really down because you love the guys, and the highs are just immense. And one of the things that I was really thinking about when I was watching the game is just how much joy these guys can bring to us. And it's an interesting point because it's a really, really unique atmosphere for a human being to set a standard so high sustainably for a long duration of time where you expect greatness out of them. And that's what USA basketball is. It's superstar athletes who in our eyes can never fail. And I think that's a really interesting point because we go through our lives and we might not even acknowledge how much we really rely on them for happiness and expect them to be excellent high-level human beings that we look up to and we ride their energy in our own life. And again, when I sports bet, I don't do that. It's so objective, so selective. It's basically totally taking the fandom out of the game. But I realized, one of the reasons why I am who I am right now, almost 40 years old, as a sports bettor and a commentator on the internet, is because I was so inspired by athletes growing up. I rode the emotional wave with those guys. And I don't mind the lows, and I love the highs. But being a fan is such a powerful thing for people like us. It just gives you such a secondary level of personal happiness in your life. And I was riding that wave down with them in the first quarter. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's 5 o'clock in Paris. It's just classic NBA guys. It's a weird tip time. It's not 7 o'clock. They're going to come out flat. and then they turn the hell up. And I will say that it gave me literal joy. And I'm telling you guys, that's a profound word. It's 3 letters, but it's a profound word. It's a deep word. Joy is bigger than happiness. Happiness oftentimes is fleeting. It's this and that. Joy is like a deep, deep energy within you. And I just felt like generations of power within my body watching these guys. And it just gave me such a ride of positive energy. And secondarily to that, and a jump off point within that is the Kevin Durant conversation. Kevin Durant, I mean, I said this on Twitter. If Kevin Durant never left Oklahoma City and he won 1, 2, 3, who knows how many titles with that group, the conversation would be vastly different. And it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate. And prior to my Twitter account, back when he signed with the Warriors, I was living in a nice Facebook world with a nice locale of friends in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. But when he signed with the Warriors, I believe it was July 1st or somewhere in that range, going back about 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it was. I actually posted on Facebook. I said, Kevin Durant just ruined basketball. And total hot take, of course, but what I was reacting to was the fact that the previous year, the 2016 Western Conference Finals, the Warriors were down 3-1 to Oklahoma City. And they had just gotten their ass kicked by Oklahoma City in Game 4 before they ran off a backdoor to win the Western Conference Finals and go to the NBA Finals. But the key point there was, at that point, the Western Conference was open season. And Durant and Westbrook and that group down there, Serge Ibaka, Steven Adams, they had 3 7-footers. If you want to call Kevin Durant a 7-footer alongside Ibaka and Adams, I remember the way that they were defending the perimeter on the young Warriors, who, of course, lived on the perimeter with the 3-ball. The Warriors couldn't get anything. And if you guys remember, I believe it was game 6 or 7 in that series, Steph Curry was on complete lockdown, and Klay Thompson went off in the 3rd and 4th quarter for, I believe, over 30, 35 points. So the insanity of this whole conversation is the fact that the Warriors could have easily lost the 2016 Western Conference Finals. OKC could have won the title, at which point there's almost no way Kevin Durant leaves that franchise and he becomes even more of a local hero than he already was, because he already got the key to the city, I believe, 2 years prior to that. So you think about where guys really create legacies. It's crazy to say, but it's usually in small markets, oftentimes. You look at a guy like Jordan. I'm not saying Chicago was a small market, but this is a kid from New York City originally who went to college in North Carolina. He went to Chicago. It was a fledgling franchise in the 80s. They were terrible. Look at LeBron, local product, Akron, Ohio, goes to Cleveland. Kobe's a bit of an outlier, obviously drafted by Charlotte, wanted to go to LA. Kobe was so big time. But these small market guys, when you win in a small market, you are forever not only a legend, but a hyper legend. And not only that, it's great for the league. And I forgot the Spurs, Duncan and all these guys winning titles down there. Small market win. Denver, Jokic. Again, think about how many small markets win titles in the NBA. It's kind of crazy. Now we got Edwards up in Minnesota as well. There's a lot of small market access across the last 35 years in the league. And if KD had just stayed the course, and I have to say, if he didn't run into an insane Hall of Fame quality second half from Klay Thompson in one of the late games in the Western Conference Finals in 2016, I don't think he ever leaves Oklahoma City. I think they win a title. I really think they beat the Cavaliers in that particular finals. I think the Western Conference Finals was the finals that year, effectively. That was the best team in the league at that point. And at that point, he never leaves. Westbrook maybe never leaves. And as I said on Twitter, I think they surround him with role players who would just facilitate his career, which is what you've seen with LeBron. LeBron goes to a location or stays in a location for a period of time, and they just put players around him for success. And Kevin Durant has, after losing that Western Conference Finals, gone the opposite route. He's the traveler. He's all over the place. And it's honestly historically completely outlierish to see a talent like Kevin Durant move teams so frequently. It's bizarre. It shouldn't happen. And it goes back to that Western Conference Finals in 2016. And the moral of the whole conversation within Kevin Durant is you saw today his quality. This guy is an older guy. They said on the air, Larry Bird is the oldest guy to win a gold medal with the U.S. He was 35 in 1992. KD, LeBron, and Steph are all older than Larry Bird currently, and versus the 92 Bird version. And when you really look at what he did today, I was shocked. I got to be honest, I was shocked. It was never a lack of trust in terms of the guy's ability to ball, but he was supposedly hurt, and he's had leg injury before, lower leg injuries, Achilles, calf injuries. He had another calf injury. I mean, I trained my ass off. I know if you have a calf injury, running around can be incredibly difficult, really, really hard. Guy comes out, he didn't miss a bucket, I believe, for the first 10 minutes of his on-court burn, and he had 21 points at the half. The guy was the best player on the floor by a mile. He looked so comfortable, and it just showcased to his unequivocal ability to ball in Hall of Fame status. The guy, he could be top 3 all time. I think he's top 10 all time, 100%, but he could be top 3 all time if he never left Oklahoma City. And that's a secondary point to what I want to jump off to is this fact of comfortability in the Olympics. Comfortability. And I think that I'm just going to retweet this, guys, see if anybody wants to come in and hang out. I know I'm not giving gambling content, but, there's a lot more to life than just gambling. So just going to retweet this, see if anybody else wants to come in here and hang the fuck out. And going to jump off to the quality point here after I retweet this. And speaking of gambling, we'll be back with official plays starting an NFL season and be immensely, immensely locked in. No other way. You guys know I don't do it halfway. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. And that's why I wasn't doing baseball picks this summer, as I mentioned on previous broadcasts on YouTube. I just wasn't feeling it this summer. New league, a lot of abstract points. Just didn't want to sweat it every night. It was just a huge burden ultimately in my mind emotionally. So I'm going to be back starting in August, late August, with the gun, college football picks, NFL picks, leading an NBA season is going to be amazing. But staying course with the conversation here on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. A couple people coming in here. Appreciate you guys. Drop your comments in the chat if you're around. See who's in the building here. But in terms of the quality in the Olympics, obviously Kevin Durant, as I was saying before, he checked the building immediately off an injury today, like he'd never left an NBA court for the last couple months. And you look at guys in the Olympics, and it's an interesting thing because we only see these guys every 4 years. They never have the same roster. So you don't really know how these guys are going to function in the Olympics in a random location across the globe, playing basketball in the middle of the summer where something matters. This is not Lifetime Fitness runs with, what's his name, Chris Brickley in New York City. This actually matters against international teams that deeply care, probably more than we do. Unfortunately, I wish we cared a little more. But the point is, you never know what you're going to get. So for Kevin Durant to be that pure, given all the circumstances, is just historically amazing. And you got to give a shout to the guy. And speaking of comfortability, the rest of the team, if we're being honest, did not look comfortable at all over the course of, I believe, 5 exhibition games: Vegas, Abu Dhabi, London. And you ask yourself, so was it just Kevin Durant dependent? Is this team so dependent emotionally on Kevin Durant and on court in terms of his flow and his ability to just get a bucket? Is that what this team is? And of course, you guys know more than any other sport, basketball is superstar dependent. You got 5 guys, no pads, no scheme. Best player on the court will control the game more often than not. And we had the best player on the floor, I think, for the first time. LeBron obviously did take over in some of the exhibition games, but we had the unequivocal best player on the floor, dominant for the first time in this window of time for the national team. And it just elevated the guys to a totally different level. And you just say to yourself, is that how basic it is? It's not about Steve Kerr. It's not about Steph, LeBron. It's not about the bench, whatever. It's just about Kevin Durant coming back, getting hot, trusting himself, being the best scorer in the history of the U.S. men's international product, and just doing what he does and taking over. Is that it? And then that's where it brings you back to the conversation. You say to yourself, so if KD is this dominant, even on a roster with LeBron and Steph and all these all-stars, what was his arc? Where could he have gone if he was still in Oklahoma City in his prime? And could he have won titles? Could he have taken that city on his back even further than he already did? Could he have become, as I said, a hyper legend instead of just a legend? It's tough to think about because I think most people would agree that Warriors group with Kevin Durant just felt cheap. And it wasn't the fact that they were obviously historically dominant. It just felt bought. It felt paid for. It felt cheap. It felt like they were a foregone conclusion. It sucked out the competitive parity of the Western Conference in the league for a period of time. And it just felt like the league wasn't in a good place. So I always thought that was one of the worst moves really in NBA history because I thought it disrupted the competitive environment across the league in a really, really top-heavy way that didn't benefit anybody except for those guys. But then you say to yourself, did it even benefit those guys? Because sometimes in life, the easy way out isn't even better for you. You lose out on your own process and your own hustle, your own struggle, your grind. And I do think that what you've seen from Kevin after the Warriors is kind of exactly that, where he won a couple titles. He got hurt, obviously, when the Raptors won the finals in 2019. But then he's just been all over the league. Brooklyn, Phoenix, just kind of like not comfortable, different rosters, not dominant, not playing, injured, inconsistent, all this. And it's like one of the best things about Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan was their loyalty to a franchise. And Steph Curry also being right there. LeBron is maybe not in that conversation as much as I do respect LeBron. He has moved around quite a bit, which I didn't love from the standpoint of just being in a city. It's not even the franchise, not the owner, it's not the money. It's being in a city. It's a region. It's a regional loyalty. And when you move regions, you kind of fuck with people. You know, like their emotions, like how are you going to bounce back and forth between all these different regions and try to act like you're loyal? You're not loyal. And that's the beauty of Jordan, Kobe, and Steph. But just in general, I think that if KD had ever been able to stay in OKC, there's never been a guy in OKC. Obviously, the franchise came over from Seattle, you know, going back when 2000. It was what KD's rookie year, I think, something like that. Westbrook was drafted there 2009, something like that. So they've only been there for like 15 years. But talk about being able to be the guy in that city forever. And he just, I don't know what it was. I think maybe he was feeling pressure. LeBron obviously was, you know, as I said, mobile as hell and moving around. So LeBron kind of set that standard for superstars moving teams to chase titles, which was complete trash. And it was one of the worst generations in the history of the NBA. But I still think it's regrettable for him, and I think he'll regret it. And again, it's not shameful. If I was having him on a podcast, I would say the same thing to him. I would say, "You're amazing. You're incredible. But what do you think if you stayed in OKC in terms of your legacy, in terms of regional loyalty, in terms of lack of player mobility, in terms of just this fleeting nature chasing across the country?" And if he was being honest, say we put him on a polygraph or something. Not saying we would have to, but if we did, I think he would agree with me. I think he would say, you know what? If I was able to stay in OKC with that original group, obviously maybe not the original group with James Harden. James Harden had been moved before that, but just that group with those 3 7-footers, it would have been Jordan-esque. Small town franchise that had been in the dump for a while, and he took them over the hump. You know, when you take a team over the hump, you become, as I said, the hyper guy, not just the guy. And JR, what up, brother? Just got some insane brain. Start the morning. What up, bro? Fuck, I could use a hot chick right now, too. I got the hair going and a seltzer with my guys. I mean, fuck, I need a beautiful woman to walk in right now and just brain it up. Cheers to you guys. I love you guys so much. Amazing. And, I drink these seltzers because they just keep it light. The last time I was on here, I was drinking a 10% beer, and after I got off the air, I was like, shit, I'm pretty fucked up. And I went on a great call with my guy DFS Bachelor. I'm not sure if you guys know Kyle Proviance. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Proviance. I think Proviance. He hosts the baseball show on BetUS. Kyle is my guy. Like, Kyle is my energy. He's conversational. He's smart. He's witty. He's got depth. He's great with women. He's psychologically intelligent. He's athletic. He likes golf. He loves to drink. He's just a guy. He's my guy. And another guy that I really, really, really appreciate is Dave Ross. They do the UFC show on BetUS. I'm not plugging BetUS, even though I love BetUS. I'm just plugging good people. Dave Ross, same thing. I believe an Army vet, loves golf, people, booze, Vegas, gambling, being smart, conversation psychology, women, the whole thing. And those are just all the top levels of great people in life, in my opinion. All those things. And Carl says Jordan ain't loyal. He moved to another team too. I mean, maybe you're trolling. If you're not trolling, I would just encourage you to go back and read historical 90s basketball. Jordan did not leave until way later on, when he was not even close to the title conversation, when he went to the Wizards. So no, unless you're talking about the Birmingham Barons, if we're going to joke about Jordan, he was disloyal to the Bulls after a three-peat, so he went and played Double-A baseball. And I think a nice little tidbit of knowledge there, if you guys didn't know, Terry Francona was actually the manager of the Birmingham Barons in the mid-'90s with Michael Jordan. Terry Francona from the World Championship Red Sox and the Cleveland Guardians. So just talk about interesting connections there in terms of who was managing Jordan when he played baseball, all sorts of stuff. But I was saying something. Sometimes I get off track here. It's one of the things when you do live videos like this. We're 22 minutes in the books here, no break ever, and I think it's interesting. This is what I love. I love candidness. Really, I love candidness. I love you guys that take the time to connect with what I'm thinking and talking about and the whole thing. But it is just pure candidness, no break. And you watch TV, they take a break. It's written on the screen. I don't know how many of you guys think about that if you're watching TV, but when you're watching TV, they have literally a script they're reading. And if you see personalities that are on mainstream TV and they go live, they're useless almost. Really useless. And obviously being in media as I was coming up a couple of years ago, I really started to think about that. I thought, wow, like I can't imagine if I had to just read something when I was on the air and I didn't have any original thought. Like, that's insane. And then to really not be able to go on and speak to people because I didn't have my script written. Like, wild stuff. But a couple other comments about Team USA I thought really interesting is the fact that Jason Tatum is getting basically no burn with this group at all. And I thought, how insane is that? That the world champion leader, basically, I think, maybe Jaylen Brown, but 1 and 1A regardless, is getting no significant playing time in the Olympics with Team USA. And this is not an age thing. This is not like a fraternity where there's a hierarchy where they just play the seniors because they have to. This is definitely a talent on court type of thing. He's just getting no burn. And it goes back to what I've been saying for years. Jay Money was saying for years. I think he's probably still saying it. We used to say it on the show. The Celtics just play this chuck threes style of ball that was winning in the NBA for the last couple of years, where the NBA is not defensive. There's not a lot of physicality in the league. And you can get away with just really chucking threes. And you go to the international game, which is officiated much more like 90s and 80s basketball in the NBA. A guy like Jason Tatum doesn't have a role. And it's kind of mind-blowing, really, that the world champion, I think he had one of the biggest contracts in the league, maybe the biggest contract in the league, is getting no play on Team USA. Like, you guys have to think about how insane that is. And this guy's not like a young guy. He's not 21. I mean, he's young, obviously, relative to human life, but he's only, I think he's 26, something like that, 25, 26, 27, in that range. He's in his early prime. There's no way a 25 or 26-year-old Kobe Bryant, after winning titles with the Lakers, would get no playing time with Team USA. And it just speaks to Tatum. Chuck threes, not overly competitive. What we've been saying for years, inexplicably losing home games in the playoffs over and over and over. And they started to win some home games in the playoffs this year. But again, I'm not like a checkpoint. I'm not trying to throw shade, just trying to be objective. This year's playoffs in the East were just injured teams they were playing. Jimmy Butler was hurt on the Heat. Donovan Mitchell was hurt on the Cavs. Tyrese Halliburton was hurt on the Pacers. So are you ever going to get a run through the Eastern Conference playoffs again? I mean, maybe in 100 years, where you're playing three teams who were all inexperienced to a certain degree, maybe not Miami, but certainly the second two deep in the playoffs, all missing their best player? Like, what? And then you get to the finals against the Mavs, who just, were unable to compete. And, Luka, obviously his first run, Luka's still being super young too. And that's another thing. Like, you go historically through the finals, the winners of the finals are usually in their late 20s and their 30s. This is an old man's league from a winning standpoint. It's a mentality thing. It's a grind. It's how do you get to June? It starts training camp in September. It's one of the, if not the longest seasons in American sports, front to back. As much as people think that baseball is a gauntlet with 162 games in the whole thing, basketball is actually a longer calendar in terms of the actual schedule. And it's just an absolute gauntlet of time, energy, the ability to sustain your mind, your body, and everything. And I think that it's just an incredible showcase to maybe how fraudulent the Celtics title was last year. And I'm not a Celtics hater. Like, I don't hate these guys. Like, again, like, I love people. I love athletes. I would never shade them, like, personally, but just objectively speaking, they played an incredibly soft calendar in the Eastern Conference playoffs. And then they got a team in the finals that truthfully that had missed the playoffs the previous season. If we're being real, had missed the playoffs the previous season and was kind of mediocre most of the regular season, made a couple acquisitions at the trade deadline. PJ Washington was heat checking the three ball, which is totally unsustainable. They get through the Western Conference playoffs, which were also super young, when two of the top three teams were, the leaders were SGA and Anthony Edwards, who are both under 25. Again, this goes back to that point. These are not older veteran guys. They didn't have to go to war with these guys. They're younger guys that were not used to playoff basketball. So the Celtics just got a super young league and an injured league. I don't know if there's been a title in the last 35, 40 years where a team won the championship playing such young teams in terms of superstar leadership and injured teams in terms of superstar injuries. And then you see Tatum getting no burn on Team USA. It just all makes sense. The Celtics are frauds. So going to take a breath. 27 minutes in the books. Going to wrap it up on that. I appreciate you guys immensely. Going to have a couple of drinks here, order some food, and watch some more Olympics on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Appreciate you guys in the chat. I know it's Sunday afternoon. People are out, about, hanging out, and enjoying their life. Please enjoy your life. Please be dominant. Please be amazing. Sending you guys all the best vibes. It is Sharky Waters Nation. I will be on here throughout the summer, and the Shark and the Gun will be popping off the first broadcast of the college football season the week of August 24th into week 1, August 29th. And NFL will be incredible this year. Already playing the Ravens at +3. For those of you guys who didn't see that on Twitter, Ravens +3 in the opener against the Chiefs. Top play in that game, an official play, an opportunity to dominate. Appreciate you guys so much. Sending you great vibes. Have a great Sunday. Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave or get out of the water. Let's fucking go.